The history of America in 60 seconds. Colonists get mad, throw tea around, gain their independence. We write a constitution so good that it leads to a civil war. We learn that coal is good for making stuff. World War I. Oh look, we're rich. Civil rights. Oh look, we're poor. World War II. We make a big bomb. The commies make a big bomb. More civil rights. Disco. Goodbye commies. Hello terrorism. 44, 45, 46. The history of China in 60 seconds or less. Fictional Shah dynasty. Non-fictional Shang dynasty. An old dude teaches good morals. Qin dynasty. They build a big wall. They build a big road. Paper. Guns! Europe's here to take all your stuff. Drugs! Seems like a good time for a cult rebellion. More drugs! Japan wants Korea. Screw you, filthy foreigner. It's time for a republic. It's time for communism. It's not time for communism. It's time for a civil war. Japan wants Manchuria. Japan gets blown up. It's time for communism. Uh-oh. Oh no. Oh, look, a perfectly lawful old man. Nothing to see here. Oh, look, they're rich. Oh, look, they're super rich. They can't watch this video. Hi, G. The history of Japan in 60 seconds or less. Pottery? Cooler pottery? Good. Old-fashioned imperialism. You were born to suffer. Hey, China, look over there. Let's write some fanfics. A new government. Another new government. I'm sure this can never devolve to a civil war. Another new government. What's that? You want to leave? Oh, we can't have that. What's that? You want to get in? Oh, we can't have that. Sir, there's people here. Don't let them in. Sir, it's the Americans. Big guns? Big guns. America's gonna take all your stuff now. That's a big army. Let's take Germany's stuff. That's a bigger army. Holy balls, that's a big army. Japan wants Manchuria. Unfortunately, they'll have to settle for all of China. Hey, Germany, want to help each other take over the world? Sir, I have a plan. A plan? A plan. What's the plan? We're gonna bomb America. Good plan. That'll show them. Sir, the Americans are taking our islands. Sir, the Americans are approaching the mainland. Japan gets blown up. Twice. Look, a perfectly good general that definitely won't want to nuke China. It's time for some industry. Look, they're rich. Look, they're super rich. Anime. The history of Germany in 60 seconds or less. They're not holy, not Roman, and not Empire. Charlemagne. Inbreeding. Want to pay to get into heaven? Let's have a war that lasts 30 years. Can you guess what it's called? You know what'd be really funny? What? If we broke Germany? Screw you, short French dude. We're gonna unify. Oh, no, you're not. We're gonna unify. Sir, should we declare war on Russia? Are you smoking? No, sir. Of course we should. That was almost as stupid as not subscribing to Mato history. You're gonna be a democracy. Oh, no, we're not. You're gonna be a democracy. Hey, little Timmy, you want this lollipop? Yeah? That'll be 5 trillion marks, please. No jokes. It was just sad. Get liberated, Sir, the Soviets made it to Berlin. How about we almost start World War III? Twice! Oh, look, they're rich. The history of Italy in 60 seconds or less. Look, a city that totally won't take over the entire world. Oh, no. Uh-oh. Ha! Told ya! Damn, look at all those city-states. Some turtles made some pretty pictures, I guess. How's it going, Italy? Oh, Europe died. It's time to get holy. Enrico Rodriguez saved the day. Oh, what were we talking about? Wait, short French dude. What are you doing? Ah! Oh no, they broke Italy. I think it's about time we unify. World War II and a crazy bald dude. Get liberated! Hey, bro, can I, crash at your house? World War I in 60 seconds or less. Oh no, I made a wrong turn. Screw you, Serbia. Screw you, Austria. Screw you, Austria. Screw you, Russia. Screw you, Germany. Screw you, Belgium. Screw you, Germany! Screw all of you! Screw you, Serbia! Oh, it's Christmas. Screw you, Germany! Welcome to the trenches! If you look to your right, you'll notice a bunch of rats. Right down there, someone is enjoying some soggy bread. Just above your head, there's a bunch of barbed wire. And holy shit, Vladimir Putin! You should take all of America's Big Macs? America! Alright guys, let's make sure this never happens again. The history of France in 60 seconds or less. I think I'm starting to see a pattern here. Maybe? Bingo! Let's have a war that lasts 100 years. Can you guess what it's called? Oh, Europe died. Sir, we are dirt poor. It's time to party! Let's have a war that lasts 30 years. Yeah. Can you guess what it's called? The 7 years? Oh, come on! Sir, we are literally broke. It's time to party! How's it going, Louis the 16? Oh, no. Soon I'll rule all of Europe. Oh, shit! Germany, what are you doing? Germany! Get liberated! Hey, bro, can I, crash at your house? The confusing history of Valentine's Day in 60 seconds or less. Bro, what the hell is this? I'm Saint Valentine. I'm Saint Valentine, you bastard. No, I'm pretty sure I'm Saint Valentine. Oh no, it appears with a knife in my face. Hey, she's pretty hot. No? That's my daughter. Dear Wraith. Wait, what? Hey, pagans! Screw you! If I eat this pineapple, maybe I'll dream of my future husband. Birds! A naked archer. No, wait, Rome. No, Greeks! Ah! Dear Widowmaker. Wait, what? It's time for capitalism! Please don't be Team Snapchat. Please don't be Team Snapchat. Please don't be goddamn it! The history of Australia in 60 seconds or less. Oh, an island. I mean, moneymaker. That's my nature. I mean, products. Oh, hell no. Guys, who the hell are you? Want some not illegal rum? Hey, you, where'd you get the car? Legally? With real money? Oh, shit! Oh, I found some gold. Son of a... Women can vote now. How long did it take the U.S.? Yeah. you, Germany! Screw you, Japan! Sir, we are literally on fire. The history of St. Patrick's Day in 60 seconds or less. Wait, are you taking me? Ah, suckers, I'm free! Let's get wasted! But Lent. Ah, right. Let's get wasted! Boy, that looks pretty cool. Let's get wasted. Oh, I have a better idea. What? Let's get wasted in a parade. Man, I miss getting wasted. Did somebody say wasted? America! Harold, we got the problem. Oh, Jim, you better not be seeing the flying potatoes again. Oh. I'm sure we'll find a better life in America. Man, America sucks. Wait. Let's get wasted! Oh, hey, Harry. Wasted! Hey, bro, this river's like green. Bro, look at those fairies. Happy St. Patrick's Day. The history of India in 60 seconds or less. And that, my friends, is Buddhism. What the hell? And that, my friends, is how you count to 10. Who the f— It appears I found a new group of people to subjugate. Trade with. Money! Hey, so I got you some— A palace! Wait, what's going on? Didn't you hear? We're rebelling against the British. What about the cannon ships? The cannon ship— More money! Oh, no, you don't. Yeah, back away. Keep it moving. My money! Oh, my money! Just a bit more. I want my money! It's mine. No, it's mine. I'm bored. Same time next year? Fancy I see you around here, partner. Whoa. Calm down, guys. Yeah, calm down. Alright, for now, round 3, begin! The history of Brazil in 60 seconds or less. Oh, would you look at the time? Bro, what's that in the river? You know what time it is. Portugal, listen, man. Listen, man. I didn't mean it. You smell that? Coffee? Smells like money. Hey, you think we should, rebel? Very interesting. Damn, this place is nice. I want it. Hey, Paraguay, it's not me. It's you. Screw you, Germany. So, we're your government now. What's with the gun? Public safety. Subscribe to Mato History.
Okay, so you know how you're an independent nation?
Yeah?
Yeah, no you're not. Leave Kuwait. Or what? Or else we'll be really mad at you. Get up, lazy bastards! We've got a Middle Eastern country to invade! But America. No buts! I haven't gotten to fight anyone in a whole 7 months! What's the plan? Alright, it's very complex. You're gonna want to sit down. Blow up Iraq. Hey, I know what you're doing. Enjoying the desert of Saudi Arabia? You're moving your troops to the border. Troops? No, we're just tourists. With guns. So, you planning on leaving Kuwait anytime soon? Maybe before January 15th, perhaps? No. Oh, that's a shame. I'm Dixie Normus with CNN, on site in Iraq. With me now is Randy the Patriot. Randy, what's your guys' plan? Well, it's quite simple, actually. Smoke grass, eat ash, and cover Iraq in ash. Fine, I'll leave them alone. Boss, he said he'd leave them alone. Hello, my fellow Americans. It is I, the third most famous president named George. Tonight, Saddam Hussein agreed to stop being such a douchebag. Well, slightly less of a douchebag. This is fantastic, as it will ensure everlasting Kuwaiti oil. Everlasting peace in the Middle East for almost 13 years.
Hey, guess what? What is it this time? We're out of money! Why is this my problem? Will you give us money if we stamp everything you buy? Like this ham sandwich? You're such a great pal! What are those redcoats think they're doing in Boston? Yeah, we'll show them! Yeah, we sure showed them! Yeah! Hold your fire, man! Did you hear that? Did you take your meds today? We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Sir, what about your 600 slaves? Sir, my nipples are getting cold. I can swim it! Can you help us win the war? Well, if I take a look at the budget, you've got yourself a deal. George Cornwallis just surrendered. Why the hell is it purple? The sub button's right there. You might as well click it. My name is Mato, and I'm explaining the history of Egypt in 60 seconds or less. I already made a video on this. You should watch it. Hey, would you look at that? We're being conquered. Twice. Thrice. Quadrice. I'm running out of ISIS. Okay, this is just getting ridiculous. This isn't healthy, Egypt. Not so breaking news. Egypt is being invaded again. Of course it's the short French dude. It's always the short French dude. I will not take this disrespect. Look at that desert. Isn't it beautiful? I want to drive a boat through it. Alright, you've had long enough. It's time. What? No! Egypt is just something every country has to go through. I colonize you, export all your resources, and then leave you poor. It helps build character. Oh, this should build some character. Alright, fine. I'm bored. Hey, Israel, prepare for utter annihilation. Shit. It worked so well the last time. We might as well. Hey, Israel, prepare for utter annihilation. Shit. Alright, I'm back, and I brought my buddies with me. Hey, what's with the gun? Public safety. Subscribe with the bell so you never miss an upload. My name is Mato, and I'm explaining the history of Russia in 60 seconds or less. It is I, Vladimir. No, not you. I'm the ruler of the Kievan Rus. We're rich, big, powerful, And hey, Genghis Khan, what brings you around these parts? So that's what brought him around these parts. Holy crap, this place sure is cold and depressing. I know, right? Don't you think we should live here? Morning, Russia, what are you up to? Give me your lunch money. Alright, next on the agenda, let's see. Oh, of course! I want your shit. The short French dude's back, and he brought an army, and they froze to death. Check, and check. Next up, become communist. I made a video on this. You should watch it. Oh, it's Vladimir Putin. And there's a large Russian man at my door. Oh, there goes my door. Make sure to subscribe with notifications so you never miss an upload. New vid next Saturday. Surrenderly, it's over. Hold up, I gotta talk to my boss first. Yeah, Jefferson? Uh-huh. Alright. He says kiss his ass. Point your guns at him, boys. Sir, they're pointing their guns at me. Sir, did you just hang up? Listen, dude, I'm telling you, it'll be easy. I'll just use this rope and tie up old Abe just like my wife used to do to me. Not gonna lie, that's pretty weird, sir. 9 in 10 dentists agree that you don't need kneecaps to live. I'm here to see Mr. Lincoln. Oh, you know the president? Yes, of course, we've been friends since childhood. Weird, he's never mentioned you. That's because I'm lying to you. So why do you need to see Mr. Lincoln? I'm giving him this rope as a Christmas present. It's March. I meant birthday present. You're kidnapping him. I'm kidnapping him. That didn't work, so we're just gonna kill everyone. Don't you think that's pretty overkill, sir? Would feeding you to a bunch of hungry alligators be overkill? Hey, Abe, since we won the war, you wanna go to the show tonight? I heard it's to die for. Oh, hell yeah, bro, see you there. Actually, I'm not going. Screw it, I'm just gonna shoot him. Sir, are you drunk? It helps me aim. Oh, my leg! Look who doesn't have kneecaps now, sir. Permission to shoot, sir. Hold your fire. Sir, I'm gonna shoot him now. I'm pulling the trigger. Are you gonna stop me? He's dead now, sir. I shot him. Fidel Castro was born on August 13th, 1926 in Cuba. Out of wedlock, what a bastard. He competed in baseball, basketball, table tennis, high jump, and middle distance races at a young age, which will make anyone hate the establishment. He went to the University of Havana, tried to invade the Dominican Republic, and decided that the buildings of Bogota looked better without windows. Soon after getting out of school, he ran for Cuba's House of Representatives as the Cuban People's Party candidate. But then, Fulgencio Batista said, "Why have democracy when I have a gun?" and overthrew the government. Castro formed a group of rebels in opposition to Batista's dictatorship, and the Cuban Revolution began. Full video on Saturday. Hopefully. The first Olympics were absolutely sure happened. It took place in 776 BC. The event was located in, get this, Olympia, Greece. And when I say event, I mean there was only one event. A 183-meter race. And it stayed that way for, 14 Olympics. The 4 years separating the games made up an Olympiad, which is what the Greeks used to measure years. Hence the quadrennial nature of the games. Skip ahead a lot of years, and Frenchman Pierre de Coubertin proposed a modern take on the Olympics, the first taking place in 1896 in Athens, Greece. The Winter Olympics were later introduced in 1924. Ever since the first games, they've taken place every 4 years, excluding 1916, 1940, and 1944, because there were other games going on at the time. Enjoy the Olympics! Like pretty much everywhere else in Europe, what would eventually be Spain was ruled by an assortment of empires from 1800 BC to 1479. So I made a list. We all know what happened in 1492. Some dude named Chris went on a boating trip with his buddies and bumped into this little thing known as the Western Hemisphere. So Spain started being a massive asshole to the natives. Every country in Europe starts accusing each other of hacking in these wars. In 1898, the international landlord, that is the US, evicted Spain from its apartment. In the 1930s, Spain became a republic, but the 1930s were a notoriously bad time for republics, and Francisco Franco ruled until his death in 1975, after which Spain transitioned to democracy.
George William Frederick was born on June 4th, 1738, with 3 subpar names. He didn't learn to read until the age of 11, while I learned a whole 2 weeks ago. To prepare for his responsibilities as king, he berated himself with harsh insults until he got better, like me in Valorant. He ascended to the throne in the middle of the 7 Years' War and helped cause internal political squabbling that matters to absolutely nobody except my history teacher, but it did make everybody forget about their crippling debt, like me in Valorant. He blew a 13 colony lead and died in 1820. If you like my voice, make sure you check out my YouTube channel at catalyst_rxn at youtube.com. I make Valorant videos. Bye.
The ancient Greeks spent a few thousand years inventing things that a lot of people hate, but go along with anyways, like thinking, democracy, and Western civilization. Alexander the slightly above average conquered the entire world, except it wasn't the entire world, and it broke immediately after he died. Greece was conquered by the Romans, Byzantines, and Ottomans, but not at the same time, because that would be pretty intense. However, with help from the UK and France, Greece gained independence and became a monarchy until 1924. But the 1920s, much like the 2020s, were a notoriously bad time for democracies. They fought on the side of the Allies in World War I, but then Germany came back for round 2 and took control of the country for 4 years. Then they thought about doing communism. But we can't have that now, can we? 60 years later, and economic depression.
Joseph Stalin was born on December 18th, 1878, in Gori, Georgia. Except later, he decided that he didn't like the birthday, so he changed it, because Stalin. He had a rough upbringing, and his father often punished him severely. After reading the classic piece of literature, Communism for Dummies, he joined the Bolsheviks. He became the Secretary General of the Communist Party, and after Lenin's death, he pulled a disappearing act and became dictator of the Soviet Union. Then he caused a famine, set up gulags, and killed anybody who looked at him funny. Then he died because he killed all the doctors who looked at him funny. If you would like to hear more of my wonderful voice, make sure you check out my gaming YouTube channel, Catalyst_RXN. I sometimes post shorts in Fortnite, Minecraft, Valorant. Make sure you check it all out. Okay, bye!
There were multiple empires in pre-Columbian Mexico. Here's the list. The Aztecs were the last, and they didn't last very long after Chris made a wrong turn. Hernan Cortez said, "This is Spain now because this is Spain now." That lasted around 300 years before the Mexicans said, "This is Mexico now because this is Mexico now." And in 1822, Mexico became an independent empire. 2 years later, it became a republic. Texas finally decided to move out of his mom's basement and get a job. But Mexico didn't want that, so they had to fight for it. 11 years later, the Americans showed up and said, "This is our land now because God said so." Then France invaded, but the French's second favorite thing to do, right next to going on strike, is surrendering. So they were gone pretty quickly. In the Mexican Revolution, Porfirio Diaz was overthrown. They wrote a constitution, and, well, you watch the news. Pancakes have existed in some form for over 30,000 years, often in the form of wheat cooked over fire. The first recorded mention came from the Greeks around 600 BC, and later the Romans. Both recipes consisted of wheat flour, olive oil, honey, and milk. They gained religious importance in 1100. As they were an easy way to use up dairy before Lent. The term pancake finds its roots in the 15th century. In the 1700s, chefs would use snow to make them fluffy. The 19th century changed everything. Milk became the common liquid in the recipe, replacing brandy and wine. And in the late 1800s, maple syrup became the sweet, enough sugar to kill a small horse, topping that we know and love today. By the way, there's a disease known as pancake syndrome that occurs when people eat food contaminated with mites. So enjoy your next pancake, and also screw you, Catalyst. In 6100 BC, a tsunami bigger than the average Toyota Corolla rather forcefully separated the British Isles from the rest of Europe. In 2200 BC, some dudes decided to put a bunch of rocks in a circle. And by dudes, I mean probably druids or Alf. The Celtic people arrived around 60 BC, pushing the native Picts to Scotland. Then in 43 AD, the Romans decided that their empire wasn't quite big enough and invaded. They made Britannia a province, founded a city nobody lives in, built a big, beautiful wall, and left. In the 6th century, Angles, Saxons, and Jutes moved in. Then the Vikings were like, "This is the IRS, get out of your house." Then the Saxons said, "No you," and retook control. And finally, the Normans showed up and began the modern day English monarchy. Check out part 2 on Mato history. It's 1337 now, don't question it. The 100 Years' War with France just started. I made a video on it, you should watch it. Half of Europe just died. Don't worry, it's just the flu. England lost, and it's time for a civil war. King Henry VIII starts splitting churches and wives. The East India Company owns a subcontinent. No daddy Google, I won't say the M word. England kind of sorta ran out of kings, so they borrowed Scotland's. France and the UK fought the 7 Years' War over Ohio. Now, who the hell would want Ohio? The Industrial Revolution originated in England in the 1770s. Finally, Ireland and Great Britain united to form the United Kingdom. Blew a 13-colony lead, Napoleonic Wars, the war to end all wars, whoops, never mind. Joined the European Union, whoops, never mind. Before Europeans arrived and became one of the many reasons we can't have nice things, Canada was populated by these native groups. The hornless Vikings that actually discovered North America arrived in Newfoundland and Labrador. John Cabot led the first major expedition in 1497 and claimed Newfoundland for the English. Jacques Cartier first arrived in 1534, and the French began arriving in small numbers, mainly fur traders. The British summoned the powers of capitalism to compete, and in 1759 they kicked the French out. During the American Revolution, a bunch of tea-drinking freedom haters fled to Canada. I mean, the British Empire abolished slavery 30 years before the US, but we don't have to talk about that. The US tried to take Canada and got its ass whooped. Canada peacefully gained independence in 1867, fought with the Allies during both World Wars, and today is one of the US's biggest trading partners. Here's a list of dudes that occupied Iberia at one point or another, assuming you can read. Portugal was finally founded as a result of the 1143 Treaty of Zamora. King Alfonso took Lisbon 4 years later. It's the 1300s, which means it's time for the Obsidian Illness. I've mentioned the Black Death multiple times, I gotta switch it up. The earliest Portuguese colonization took place in the Madeiras in 1420. In 1494, the Pope and the Treaty of Tordesillas gave Portugal one half of the planet, and Spain the other half. The Portuguese colonized the Atlantic coast of sub-Saharan Africa and Brazil, which had over 4 million slaves by the time slavery was abolished there in 1888. Gotta update the list. In 1846, a civil war was fought between monarchists and liberals. They fought with the Allies during World War I, but they pulled a Switzerland in World War II. It became a democracy in 1974, and is known today as that one country that borders Spain. So what I got from my research is that in Sweden, the Stone Age was like the Stone Age. I made a video about that. You should not watch it. The indigenous Sami people are known to have lived there as late as 2,000 years ago. In 800, the hornless Vikings started expanding Sweden's influence all the way to the Arabian Peninsula. In 1249, Sweden and Finland united in less than diplomatic means. By 1280, Sweden was united under the feudal system. In 1319, Norway joined in to form the Nordic Megazord. The Kalmar Union was established in 1397. And all of Europe lived happily ever after because they all agreed that killing people is dumb and KO is BS. Sweden and Denmark have fought anywhere from 11 to 30 wars between each other. There was a Swedish empire at one point, but they forgot the number one rule of the empire: if you're not first, you're last. And their holdings in the Baltic Sea were vastly reduced after losing the Great Northern War to Russia, Poland, and Denmark. They should have been more like the US, because the US never loses wars. Sweden hasn't fought in a war since 1814 and it's number 7 in the HDI index. Boy, that's crazy, man. Now, I'm gonna go shoot off fireworks at 3 in the morning. Turkic people originally inhabited Central Asia before migrating across Eurasia, forming a rogues gallery of empires throughout history. Some ended up in Anatolia by the 11th century, a region that knew a thing or two about the trials and tribulations of man. When the Turks arrived, it was under the control of the Byzantines, what was left of the Byzantines anyways. So in 1071, the Turks just kinda snuffed them out. Just shut up and die! Then they formed the Anatolian Seljuk state. Now, I know you didn't know that existed. To be fair, most Americans couldn't point to Mexico on a map, let alone a failed state from the 11th century. Yeah, the Mongols gave them a level 10 pounding, and Anatolia came out of it in 1299 as the Ottoman Empire. In 1453, the Ottomans realized that the Byzantines climbed out of their hole, so they conquered Constantinople. Proceeding Suleiman the Magnificent's rise to power in 1520, the Ottomans did some exploding, and when you know it, they took over America's favorite holiday destination. Then they chilled a little too hard and lost a crap ton of territory. You know what you should never do when you're a weak and dying nation? Bet on Germany. You know what they did? Bet on Germany. The new Turkey was founded by this guy. And today, oh, it looks like we're out of time. In 3000 BC, the Harappan civilization inhabited the region. Shout out to my main man Mato History for the awesome vid on it. Here's a list on every empire that ever conquered the region. You'll quickly note that it's longer than your mom's shopping list. The British shoved the Sikhs into a locker and incorporated Pakistan into its holdings in India. In 1906, the All India Muslim League was founded, which called for India's Muslims to get their own nation. After nearly a century of being a catalyst for rich Uncle Pennybags' grand plan, the colonies gained independence in 1947. But for Britain's final roundhouse kick to the balls, they created a migrant crisis. Since independence, they've gone to war with India over Jammu Kashmir, a conflict that still has not been resolved, gotten a divorce with Bangladesh, implemented Sharia law, and did a big boom. Homo erectus arrived in the archipelago of modern-day Indonesia roughly 1.9 million years ago via a land bridge in a Honda Civic. Humans arrived around 400,000 years ago, keeping up with the tradition of being unfashionably late. Humans are pretty moronic, but damn are we amazing at business and empire. While you were busy summoning Ryuk trying to pronounce those, the Dutch Dutch East India Company, or VOC, was being founded, the Amazon of the 17th century. By 1641, the VOC took over Batavia and Malacca, but in 1799, it learned that no matter how many public officials you pay off, if you're in debt, you're in debt. The British arrived in 1806, went to war, controlled the islands from 1811 to 1816, took some Flintstones chewables, and gave the islands back. The Javanese were pissed about the transition and rebelled to no avail. There was constant warfare from 1848 to 1908. The Dutch were huge assholes until the early 1900s, just in time for the Japanese to come in and be huge assholes. Indonesia gained independence in 1949. It took a swing and a miss at democracy and was ruled by dictator Suharto after he was granted emergency powers during a communist coup. Ever since elections were held in 1999, Indonesia has grown steadily. Oh boy. Iraq was home to some of the earliest civilizations. Writing, food, I guess it's important. I made a video on it, watch it. Here's a list of every empire that B-slapped Iraq. You know what? By definition, I've got to add the US. When Britain invaded the Ottoman Empire, which was the equivalent to beating up a blind old man flailing around two M16s, they took over Iraq. During the war, the UK told the Arabs they would get their own states. Then they turned around and split the region with France because money. In 1932, Iraq gained independence and it was smooth sailing for about 3 seconds before they allied with the Axis powers and Britain invaded to ensure that every red-blooded American can drive around in an oversized Ford F-150. They joined the Arab League after the war. In 1979, Saddam Hussein gained power and immediately went to war with Iran. In 1990, Hussein invaded Kuwait and met most of the world. In 2003, the US accused Iraq of WMDs, weapons of mass destruction. Never found any, but figured, hey, we're already here. I'm stopping there. Just go argue about it on Twitter or something. The Polynesians arrived in New Zealand sometime between 12 and 1300. These were the ancestors of the Maori, the most alpha people on Earth. Dutch sailor Abel Tasman arrived in 1642, but nothing came of it. James Cook arrived 127 years later, and a wave of settlers soon followed, spreading their two favorite religions, Christianity and capitalism. In 1840, after many years of pressure to nail down the territory, mainly from mortal enemy France, the Treaty of Waitangi was signed to establish British law. The Maori resisted for almost 30 years, but nothing triggers the human tendency to murder like the sweet scent of a Benjamin Franklin. In 1893, they became the first country where women got the right to vote. The islands officially joined the British Empire in 1907 and fought for the Allies in both world wars. They gained their independence soon after the second one. They fought in two wars that the US merely failed to win. Today, the country actually gets crap done and is beautiful as fuck. The Korean Peninsula was ruled by the Japanese from 1910 until the end of World War II. After the war, while the US and USSR were seeing who could piss off the most people the fastest, they split Korea. The Republic of Korea was formed in 1948, led by Syngman Rhee, and declared independence in 1950, so the Soviet-backed North invaded, pushing them all the way to Busan. In response, the United States of F-22s and a UN coalition invaded the North and pushed them to the Chinese border. Then, the Chinese pushed the US and France back, fearing an invasion by General Douglas, I'm your stepdad MacArthur. The Korean War eventually came to a stalemate at the 38th parallel. This morphed into the Demilitarized Zone, or DMZ, the longest staring contest in world history. There was a military coup in 1961, and martial law was introduced in 1972 and 1980. The first election where heavy weaponry wasn't involved took place in 1987. Today, they have a massive tech industry and an on and off relationship with the North. After World War II, the USSR entered the northern half of the Korean Peninsula and installed Kim Il-sung and the Korean Workers' Party. In 1948, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea was founded. They invaded the South, marking the beginning of the Korean War, which ended with a stalemate at the 38th parallel. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, which was hard carrying its economy, the North fell into deep financial troubles, which eventually led to a famine killing 3.5 million people. Kim Jong-il rose to head honcho after his father's death and reignited violence with the South throughout the 90s. In 2006, they conducted their first nuclear test, which would continue despite sanctions from the UN. After Kim Jong-il's death, Kim Jong-un rose to power and continued his father's nuclear program. In 2018, a landmark meeting occurred between the North, South, and the US. And today, nobody really knows what the hell is going on. The island of Singapore has been used as a trading post since the 3rd century. Well, it was until 1613 when the Portuguese burned it down, and the island was abandoned. But capitalism is like Thanos, in that it's inevitable, and by the 1800s, it was making a comeback, just in time for the British to take control in 1819. It became part of the Strait Settlements, alongside Malacca and Penang. The big three of profit. The Suez Canal was built, also on British land, increasing Indian Ocean trade. If there's one thing more inevitable than capitalism, it's war. And it slapped Singapore in the face when it was occupied by the Japanese from 1942 to 45. The People's Action Party, or PAP, won the elections held in 1959, and Lee Kuan Yew was elected prime minister. Singapore gained independence in 1965. Today, the country is a one-party state ruled by the PAP, which does infringe on freedom of speech, expression, and other rights. It's also become an economic hub of Asia with its massive tech industry. On August 15th, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau called a snap election scheduled for September 20th, 2021. But What the hell is that? Canada's government runs on the parliamentary system, and every 4 years, Canadians elect representatives to the House of Commons. The leader of the party with the most seats becomes the Prime Minister. Justin Trudeau's Liberal Party beat out multiple other parties. Yes, Americans, 3 or more party states exist, it's possible, in the 2015 election. However, in the 2019 election, though they retained the most seats, the Liberal Party did not gain a majority of the seats. This is called a minority government. Under Canadian law, it's legal for the Prime Minister to reschedule an election before the 4-year term is up. The Liberals are hoping to run on the party's COVID-19 response, gain back the majority, and carry out its agenda without working with other people. Mecca, Saudi Arabia is known as the birthplace of Islam in the 7th century. Anyways, here's a long list of emirates and dynasties that I found on Wikipedia. 1,000 years later, the Al Saud dynasty was established. Around the same time, Wahhabism was introduced. Go argue about it on Twitter or something, I'm just the messenger. From 1902 to 1932, Ibn Saud conquered the vast majority of the Arabian Peninsula. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia was founded in 1932. 6 years later, oil was first discovered. Oh lord, this comment section. In 1960, Saudi Arabia became one of the founding members of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, or OPEC, which essentially manipulates oil prices. And they strengthened their ties with their neighbors with the founding of the GCC. Today, Saudi Arabia is defined by its ongoing proxy conflict with Iran, and other things that I'm sure you can learn about on your cable news network of choice. It wasn't until 80 million years ago that the island of Madagascar became an island. 2,000 years ago, the island got double-teamed by Indonesians and East Africans. The Arabs, who were good at business long before they built the cities that Americans like to take selfies in, began trading on the north coast. Diogo Diaz was the first European to discover the island after he made a wrong turn on his way to work. The native Malagasy people evicted a ton of European trading posts through the 1500s. The French invaded the island in 1894 and made it a colony 2 years later. The natives constantly fought back against French rule until finally gaining independence in 1960. In 1975, the military took over and formed ties with the USSR. After protests during the early 90s economic crisis, a new constitution was written in an attempt at democracy, which has gone better than some other countries in the region. This is pretty much where the country stands today, ranking slightly better than its neighbors in human development and democracy. The earliest Peruvian civilizations date back 6,000 years ago. The Inca Empire was founded in 1438, which was just really bad timing. Spain arrived in 1528 and spread the gospel before spreading bullets. The Viceroyalty of Peru was established in 1542 until Peru gained independence in 1824. It was roommates with Bolivia for a few years, but Bolivia's occupation was only a singular Bitcoin. Then Spain came back in its final form. Bolivia bought a Mato RXN JPEG for $30,000, so Peru agreed to join them in getting whooped by Chile. A coup a day keeps democracy away. An internal conflict was fought between the government and guerrilla fighters. They wrote a new constitution in 1993 after some minor difficulties. Finally, as of 2020, Peru's former president was impeached. Yo, same! The first Inuit people arrived on the island 5,000 years ago. Eric the Red discovered the island in 982 and spent the rest of his life laughing his ass off. In 1721, the Danes colonized the island. Probably because nobody would think about bothering them. Somebody did think about bothering mainland Denmark in 1940, however, so the US took custody of the island and made itself at home. It gained representation in Danish parliament in 1953, unlike some territories. However, that same year they exiled native Inuit from their land. In 1968, the US lost 4 nukes on the island. Don't worry, we found them, most of them. In 1979, it formed a parliament that takes care of domestic affairs, but Denmark still handles defense. That shouldn't be too necessary because one, cold, and no solicitors. Today it's in my top 5 list of places to illegally migrate to in the case of World War III, and it's melting. Ferdinand Magellan discovered the Philippines in 1521 and Spain colonized them 21 years later. The Spanish occupation lasted until the late 19th century when a revolution was followed by the Spanish-American War. Independence didn't last long, however, after the American-Philippine War and subsequent American colonization. Hey, we learned from the best, or worst. The Philippines gained further autonomy in 1916, and in 1935 the US promised them independence in around 10 years. But, as you probably know, World War II kind of threw a wrench into things, and the Japanese occupied the islands. The US promptly made them unoccupy them. Shortly after independence in 1946, Ferdinand Marcos ruled from 1965 to 86. Today, the country remains in the midst of a conflict between the government and Muslim insurgents such as the MILF. It's complicated, and if you're interested, just Google Philippine civil conflict. Alright? From 550 to 330 BC, the Achaemenid Empire ruled over the region before being invaded by Alexander the Subpar. Islam was introduced to the region in 636. Now let's skip to modern day because there's more explosions. And by modern day I mean 1828, when they lost a war to Russia. There was a famine in 1870, and after some fighting, a constitution was written, which was followed by more fighting. Oh, and oil was discovered at the same time. Reza Shah Pahlavi took power in 1921 and ruled until he bet on Germany and got kicked out by the Allies. By 1953, the US and friends thought the country was getting a little too close to the Soviets, so they engineered a coup. Then the Iranian public thought the Shah was being an asshole, so they rebelled and proclaimed the Islamic Republic of Iran. The country's been in the news for the past 20 years as a result of its nuclear program and influence in the Middle East. People first migrated to Finland after the glaciers receded. In 1323, Sweden took over the region, and that lasted until 1809 when Russia took over. In 1906, they became the first country in Europe to enact women's suffrage, which is a hell yeah. During the Russian Revolution, the Finns just kinda snuck out the back door and gained independence, although a civil war did start a year later. A year after that, the Republic of Finland was founded. They were neutral during World War II, but the Soviets invaded anyways and statistically lost, but Finland still to give the USSR land because the Soviet strategy at the time was like when you throw bodies onto the objective until you eventually capture it. Since then, they just kind of laid back while laughing hysterically at the rest of the planet. Look at any international ranking and it's probably at the top. And just look at it. How could you not love this place? The Sami people began living in northern Scandinavia around 1,000 years ago. The hornless Vikings paid some friendly visits to their neighbors before pursuing a subpar career in the NFL. Norway was unified around 900. 600 years later, they formed a union with Denmark before they left for Sweden. Like a pre-modern European rom-com. In 1905, Norway gained independence. It was occupied by Germany from 1940 to 1945 before the Allies put an end to that. Oil was discovered in 1969, earning itself a spot on most American maps, although they began to move away from it in recent years. They've acted as a mediator between nations. They're number one on the HGI index, and I absolutely love this place. The first native tribes inhabited Costa Rica around 5,000 years ago. In Mato's Day, the reminder that Columbus didn't discover the entire galaxy. He did show up uninvited in 1502, and the Spanish colonized it in 1521. They became fully independent in 1838. The first order of business was to kick out William Walker, an American who briefly took over Nicaragua with the goal of expanding southern slavery. Oh, but the US wasn't done. In 1874, miner Cooper Keith started the United Fruit Company. In 1948, after a disputed election, a civil war lasted a whole 44 days. The next year, they made it illegal to have a standing army. The US came back to train guerrilla fighters to fight the communists in Nicaragua. I'm a good neighbor, the US said, as it blew leaves into Central America's lawn. Since 1980, the country has increasingly developed. It gets almost 2 million tourists annually, mostly from the US, and roughly 99% of its energy production is renewable. The Khoisan people have inhabited South Africa for 140,000 years. If they can survive that long, then you can survive your math class. But, alas, Bartholomew Diaz first landed on the southern tip of Africa in 1488. Jean van Riebeck figured that someone had to colonize the place, and it might as well be him. Shortly after the colony was ceded to the Devourer of Worlds, the Zulu Empire assembled to resist. The Dutch who left the OG colony founded the Transvaal, to which the British responded, whatever, who gives a shit. In 1877, they looked in the mirror and remembered that they did care. Shortly after the Second Anglo-Boer War, because everything needs a sequel, the Union of South Africa was formed. It gained full independence in 1934. Apartheid segregation laws took effect in 1948 and would continue until 1991. 3 years later, opposition leader Nelson Mandela became president. Since then, the country has been slowly developing, but some things have gotten in the way. This is the history of Myanmar. 3,500 years ago, civilizations were first established on the Irrawaddy River. Myanmar was first unified in 1057. Then under the Tuangu dynasty, it got pretty big. They were preoccupied during the 1800s, fighting the god of colonialism and all. They lost, and after a brief Japanese occupation, Burma gained independence in 1948. From 1962 to 2011, it was ruled by a single-party socialist military government. In 2017, the UN launched an investigation into crimes committed against Rohingya Muslims. And on February 1st, 2021, the military took over in a coup and installed a military junta. By the way, in honor of 50 shorts, I'm dropping a compilation of all of them. You'll know when it's up by subscribing.